everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And today we have a special bonus episode for you. Today we are ranking our favorite top 12 Shakespeare adaptations. And Terry was kind enough to agree to do this because I wanted to do it because I just went to the Utah Shakespeare Festival, which is a Tony Award winning festival that has been, this was the 63rd year
Ooh,
of the
exciting.
festival. And it was such a fun experience. And I just thought it would be fun to talk about it. And,
I'm
and
jealous because that's
yeah,
how you should watch Shakespeare on the
yeah,
stage, really.
yeah.
There's something about it, watching it on the stage.
Yeah, and there have been tons of adaptations of Shakespeare over the years in film, and some more successful than others.
Very true. Very,
But
very true.
yeah, and it is quite a bit of variety because we used a fairly loose, kind of like what we did with Jane Austen, a fairly wide net that we set could count as an adaptation. And we also did our next three picks, our 13, 14, 15, on for the patrons. So if you join the Patreon, then you get to hear more of our opining about Shakespeare there. And yeah, thank you so much, Terry, for doing this.
No problem. This was fun and nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yes.
Because I tried not to make my entire list nothing but Kenneth Branagh and Laurence Olivier movies.
Yeah.
So I had to no, smack my hand. No.
I have a couple from them.
Yeah.
I also tried my best to not have more than two of any particular play.
As
I
did
mean,
I, yeah.
do you
I think
have
I failed on one of those, though.
do you have a particular Shakespeare play that you would say is your favorite?
I really do love the comedies.
Yeah,
And
same.
I love The Taming of the Shrew and Much Ado About Nothing. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a sucker for um Romeo and Juliet, and I do
Mm-hmm.
like Hamlet. I
Yeah,
also like King Lear, but I did not choose any King Lear
I
adaptation.
don't think that there's been like a great King Lear adaptation. I
I,
don't
I I've
think.
never seen Ran
Mm.
from 1985,
Oh,
so I couldn't
oh,
put, and I didn't have enough time to watch it, and I was like,
yeah.
oh, everybody says that that's from
Oh,
um
oh, that is good. Oh, shoot.
Akira Kurosawa, I'm sorry, like his from the 80s,
That
and
is
it's based on
good.
King Lear, but I've never seen it, and I was like, oof,
I
but
forgot
I
about
don't think
that.
I've
I
ever
have seen
seen,
it,
yeah, I haven't seen a King Lear that I really liked.
but I have a different one from Akira Kurosawa on here.
Same, I do too.
But yeah,
I
I
think
would
he
say
did three
that.
or four, so.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned Taming of the Shrew and Much Ado About Nothing because I saw both of those at the festival.
Oh,
So,
nice. Yeah, because they're just so
and
much more fun. Because
yeah,
Shakespeare's a lot of tragedy, which is great,
yes.
but I also like to have a bit of fun.
I saw Taming of the Shrew, Much Ado About Nothing, A Winter's Tale, which I had never seen before, and it's like actually really good. For some reason, I thought, oh, this is going to be boring, but it actually was a really good mixture of like drama and humor, and it has some magical elements. It really reminded me quite a bit of Midsummer's Night's Dream,
Yeah.
in that sense of sort of the magic, but also the drama and the humor and everything. I really did. I did like it quite a bit. And then they did Henry VIII, which is hardly ever done. They in the
It's true.
63 years of the festival, it's only been done. This is only the third time
Oh, wow.
it's been done. And it was very interesting because I had just seen Firebrand, this recent movie about
Mm.
Henry VIII.
Yeah, it did not
And
come out near me, Rachel. I'm so upset. I'm gonna have to wait till it comes out to watch it.
well, he's portrayed as, this brute
Yeah.
of a
Ugh.
man. And I think somewhat accurately, especially that later, in life, whereas
Yeah.
this play is about his first marriage, and
Yeah.
Catherine is kind of the
Mm.
hero of the story.
As she was in life to put up with that man. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm gonna put my
Yeah. Oh,
opinion to the
yeah.
side.
What was interesting is that it was kind of a propaganda play.
Oh,
And you think,
totally.
because I mean, they were writing it as they're the king's players. They
Oh, yeah.
literally worked for the king. And, so there's only so much that the king,
Yeah.
and the queen.
I
There's only
mean,
so
so
much that
much of
they could
those.
do because I mean their patron was literally Queen Elizabeth, from and so, what could they do?
I
And so
know.
it was kind of interesting on that level to watch, but it was a little boring, I'll be
It's
honest.
it's
But
it's almost like Tudor propaganda as
yeah,
well.
no,
And yeah,
absolutely. It was.
totally. It's all part of that. It's so true.
So it was interesting. And then they had a non-Shakespeare, they had the 39 steps,
Ooh,
which
interesting.
yeah, which is it's kind of a farcical take on the 39 steps.
Hmm.
And I've seen it a number of times, so it's kind of lost its
It's lost its appeal.
it's
I get
not
it.
it was
Sometimes
fun.
it's
It's
hard
fun
to
enough,
take. Like
but
I watched I love the Hitchcock version
yeah.
of that,
And
and then
this
I
is kind
watched
of a
it.
very silly version.
Yeah, I watched like a TV movie version of it. I was like, enough, I can't, So,
Yeah.
it is a
eh,
particular way to nail that. Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
And I find that the comedies are a little, as far as plays, are a
Yeah.
little less rewatchable than the other kinds of plays. Because I just
Hmm.
find myself, it's like, okay, I've seen this joke,
Oh,
I don't know,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, I get
and
it. Yeah.
but it was still, entertaining to see. And if people want to hear more of my thoughts on theater, I host the On Stage Blog theater podcast with Jax, who used to do the Bubbly Sesh and who does City Girls Pod here. She's now my co-host there. And so like every couple of weeks we do an episode talking all things theater, and it's really fun. And I'll put a link. You all should check it out. And so I love theater as much, if not more so, than movies and television. So, so please take a look at that. But I do love Much Ado About Nothing and The Taming of the Shrew. I have mixed feelings on, but it
Hmm.
can be quite entertaining.
It can be. I mean, it is not a particular story that has aged well through the centuries.
Yes.
But if done well,
Yeah.
and you can rework it. There's been some really interesting, modern
Yeah.
day takes on it.
Yeah. And it
So,
really is kind of your classic enemies to lovers, like true enemies. Well, same thing with Much Ado too.
yeah, yes.
So but then I also love Macbeth. Those are probably my two favorite. I am not the biggest Romeo and Juliet fan, which is interesting
Hmm.
that I have two Romeo and Juliet on this list, because I don't know, I just find the whole
I loved it. I think I've grown less in love with it as I've gotten older, but there was
yeah.
something about, again, I loved Misery as a child. So there was something about spoilers alerts. They die, guys. I don't
Yes.
know if you know about Romeo
Yeah.
and Juliet. Imagine
Well,
I
it's
spoil that for somebody who's like, oh no,
well, I mean, it's just your
heartless woman.
classic
Yeah,
like
it's just
doomed
like,
romance, which you love
that's
when
it.
you're
I
a
loved
teenager.
doomed romance.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
eating popcorn while watching them die, like savoring like the melodrama. I was a weird kid, Rachel. I didn't have a lot of friends.
But I love Twelfth Night. I just think it's
Yeah.
so funny. And I had the opportunity to see Twelfth Night, a production, not at the Shakespeare Festival, but it's called the Parker's Theater here. And it was absolutely fantastic. And it's such a funny play. If people, and I would say, in my opinion, I think that Much Ado About Nothing and Twelfth Night are probably the best gateway plays. Like I
I
think
would,
they're
yes,
very
I think so,
accessible
yeah.
for somebody just trying to dip their toe into Shakespeare.
Hmm.
And what was really
Totally.
interesting at one of the seminars at the festival, because they have a little like pre-show little seminar that they do, and then the next morning you can go and for another seminar. It's very interesting. And one of the dramaturg at the post seminar was saying that one of the reasons why Much Ado About Nothing is so accessible is because compared to other Shakespeare has way more prose versus poetry, because you have these
Yes.
long sort of diatribes where people are just talking to themselves or talking to the and I never really thought about that before, but
It's true,
it's
yeah.
it's
I
less like
agree, yeah.
poetically challenging.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I
They
think
have
those
a sort of this energy. The energy is more there too
mhm.
in the
Yeah.
dialogue and in the performances, depending on who's performing it, but
Yeah.
it's like
And
a
I
fun
think,
energy throughout.
yeah, and I think that the plot is fairly simple
Hmm.
in, it's this kind of classic screwball comedy that you have. So anyway, I think that and I do think that Romeo and Juliet is a pretty good gateway as well, because it is a pretty simple
Yeah.
simple story.
True. If you're a melodramatic teen like I was, it will get you. Oh, Rachel, those
Yes,
days.
yes.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Well, what do you have at number 12?
This one, I don't even know if it's really good, but I said screw it. It's a pure nostalgic pick for me because my sister and I loved this movie growing up, but it's just one of the guys from 1985, and it's based on 12th Night.
Oh, I don't know this. I haven't seen this.
It's directed by a woman, Lisa Gottlieb, or I think I wrote that in my notes wrong. I'm sorry about that. But it doesn't really star anybody who's kind of famous today. Like it stars Joyce Heiser and Billy Jacoby. But basically, the lead character's name is Cherry. And she's like, I'm so tired of nobody taking me seriously because, she wants to be a journalist. And you're like, but you're too pretty to be a journalist. She can't get a summer job because they're only giving it to the boys. So what does she do? She dresses up like a man to do an investigation of how men have it easier and shenanigans happen. But it's just, there's just a scene that I specifically remember that my sister and I used to make fun of all the time because she does befriend a dude. Her brother helps her throughout the whole thing when she's pretending to be a guy. And she has to, we don't see anything, but she rips open her shirt, right? And the guy is confused and he goes, are those what I think they are? When she admits that she's a woman.
Yeah.
And my sister and I used to just constantly go, is that what I think they are? Like we would just say that to each other all when we were growing up as a joke because it just was so memorably stupid, when you think of those moments. But this is a pure 80s teen comedy. Like if you think of like 80s teen movies, this is it. I don't know if it's that well remembered, but man, we used to watch this all the time. Like it used to give all the time on the weekends, this and The Legend of Billie Jean, all those movies. And yeah.
Is it
So
like
it
like a raunchy? Is it like does it actually use the
It's-
Shakespeare or is it?
Yeah, it's a mix of, because it's a modern day take, obviously, from the 80s. So it's a mix of like the Shakespeare stuff and new stuff.
Oh,
So it's it's really inspired by, but I would say they're more modernizing it than anything else. So it's kind of a twist in that, but I think it is a fun sort of gateway.
cool. Yeah.
I don't even know if this movie would play good to anybody today.
I'll have to check
It's
it out.
it's probably not aged well, humor wise and everything. It's like from 1985. So
Yeah.
but it's just, in my mind, it lives on in infamy.
Well, my number 12 pick, people are gonna laugh at because people don't think of this as Shakespearean, but you have to see it in the original Klingon. It's Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. And if people didn't know, there's this whole long section of this movie where they wax philosophically about Hamlet, to be or not to be. And there's like and Christopher Plummer is in this. And I do think that this is a very underrated Star Trek sci-fi movie. I think this one is really good. People only talk about Wrath of Khan. This one is
It's
really
true. And it's
good.
the last one with the original cast,
Mhm.
like completely. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Christopher Plummer is great as this villain, and there's this whole long section where they're talking about Shakespeare and
Of course, the
Hamlet,
Cleons would
and
want Shakespeare, you know? Of course they
yes,
would.
and it's really entertaining. It's a really good
Yeah.
movie. It's got good characters and a good story, and I just think that I was just watching through like the scenes where they're talking
Yeah.
about Shakespeare this weekend. I was like, no, this is good. This is a good movie. Like people don't talk about this one enough, in my opinion.
Yeah. It is
So,
acceptable. To me, it is. Adding
yeah,
Star Trek is acceptable always.
yeah, and like I said, they have this whole scene. You haven't lived until you've seen it in the
Yeah.
original Klingon.
I was like, of course the Klingons like that.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
Yes.
Um,
Well, what do you have at 11?
I can't believe I put this one up here, but I really thought about it, and I put The Northman, which is based on Hamlet.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And I had a memorable, Rachel, experience in the movie theater watching this movie. I had it's the middle of winter, and me and this older couple kept looking at each other because there were two separate couples that I guess it
Uh-huh.
was cheaper going to the movies than getting a hotel room.
Oh no.
So one was a couple of aisles behind me. The other couple was the next, like the aisle opposite
What
me.
a strange movie.
What a strange movie to get it onto. And I looked like an older lady and I locked eyes and we were like, exactly. I paid money to see this movie. I ain't going nowhere. So I just like paid attention to the movie. But, you know, I think it lives on in infamy for me.
To have your make out movie be like
Make out, Rachel.
It is
make
not
out. You wish they were making out. They had their coats over them. Because there was at one point when the trailers were still giving,
not
but
a sexy
I got up.
movie at all.
It is not, but like this is totally off
people,
tangent. But I got up to take off my coat, and the trailers were still giving.
They have
And
human
the theater
beings
was like
barking
basically
like
empty.
dogs. They
and I turn around like to place my coat on the empty seat next to me, and I see this couple like all underneath their coats, and I was like, okay, guys, you're young, I get it, but I was like, come on now. But I paid my ticket, so I was going to sit there and watch it.
People being burned alive, and they have like people being decapitated. I mean, it's
this movie is
like
strange.
The last movie in the world that I would want to make out with.
Rachel, they were some of those were doing more than make out. But okay, I mean, once the movie started, of course, I didn't look back. I'm
not a sexy movie. That just makes me laugh. Like,
so I know, but like I could feel like every now and then I would look to the older couple, we'd lock eyes, going, "Ain't this something?" But
oh my gosh, that's funny. I have to admit, it was not my favorite. This movie.
No, it's a hard movie to take because it is weird. But
it's weird, and it was very repetitive, in my opinion.
It was
doing the same thing.
I agree, but I do think the performances were good, and I think I just like it set where it's set, and just like I think they really did like the setting. You could tell that because it came out. This movie was so expensive, but you could tell it in the sets and in the costuming.
Yeah,
and visually, the look of it is what I was really, and I did get like, okay, can we move on from this? It is an imperfect film, but there was something that I enjoyed about it, and the tale of revenge, that tale and the double crossing of the mother. And I was like, yeah, I could see it, you know, and I do think that Alexander Skarsgård was good in this movie. And visually it's weird, but I loved how they played with Norse mythology.
Norse mythology. Well, here's the crazy thing. So I saw this movie on a doubleheader day where I saw this movie and Everything Everywhere all at once.
Wow, that is bizarre.
That's a lot of weird for one day.
Yeah. Because I had to take a moment, besides, the two couples getting it on, but I had to like take a moment after this movie was done. And I don't know, I just, it's weird. And I like the ambition of the ambition of it. I think I like it more than a few other people who said it, but it's a little hard to take,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was quite a movie day for me. That was a lot.
What a movie day for both of us.
Going on. But don't do that in movie theaters.
Please don't. I mean, respect the elderly, and that includes myself. Okay? I don't have to turn around and like put your coat on, you know?
Well, my number 11 is Another version of Twelfth Night. You mentioned one. I will talk about one. It's called She's the Man. And this is a silly little movie, but I enjoy it. It stars Amanda Bynes, and it's this take on Twelfth Night. She basically takes her brother's spot in this. She wants to go to this. She loves soccer. She wants to go to the special private school where they have the best soccer team. Her soccer team has been cut at her school. So she goes to her brother's school, he's like in England. But she pretends to be a dude so she can go to the school. And Channing Tatum plays like the hot captain.
I've never seen
the
this movie.
soccer
I didn't know
team.
he was in this movie.
Yeah, he's in it. And it's very silly, but I think that Amanda Bynes is a really great comic actress.
Yeah.
I love her in this. I love Big Fat Liar. That's like one of my favorite
Yeah.
comedies. Like, true. It's
Well, this was the height of her fame. Like she'd just gotten out of Nickelodeon, right? She was making all these movies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. If it was up to me, I would have nominated Paul Giamatti for Best Supporting Actor for Big Fat. He's so good in that movie.
I have never
so
seen this one. I
funny.
know of it. I know of it.
I
I've just
love
never seen
it. I mean, sincerely, I love Big Fat Liar. It's so funny, and She's the Man is not as
Yeah.
funny, but as that. But it's a cute little rom-com,
Yeah.
and has tries to have something to say about gender and about relationships and things like that. And so, yeah, I think people would like it. I think our listeners would enjoy She's the Man. So
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Let's see. What do you have at 10?
At 10, I have the 1935 version of A Midsummer's Night's Dream.
Oh, okay.
And it has like Olivia de Havilland, Dick Powell, James Cagney, like a plethora of people. And I think this might have been maybe not the first seen it, but I believe this was the first film Olivia de Havilland did for Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I picked this because what a feast for the eyes, and what this must have been in 1935 to see visually how they made this movie. Like, we're so used to it today, but in 1935, this must have been like blowing people's minds. The costumes, the sheer fantastical elements of it. It's a very whimsy, and I don't know, there's just something, it's beautifully photographed, and of course it's in black and white, but it's just so, I mean, what they do visually, I think I really look at it like almost as, man, if I was in 1935, this would have been amazing. But I think it still holds up visually.
Yeah.
I think it's aged well.
I haven't seen that one. I need to.
It's a carousel of Warner Brother like actors, like all famous, who were famous at in the 30s, at the time of this movie. But it's a pretty good adaptation of Shakespeare. They don't really stray from it. They
Mm-hmm.
they were much more, I think, back then, for the majority of time, faithful to the actual text. But it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting watch, and it's my favorite version of this play on film.
Yeah, I've only seen the Michelle Pfeiffer one as far as the filming, and it's I don't
know if this one's done as much like a film.
Yeah, I mean, the story kind of meanders, so I can understand why it's not done that much.
Right.
But talked about in the bonus to the Patrons, of course, you got Dead Poets Society. And how dare the young man wants to be in a play. His parents are so ridiculous. But that is what I think of whenever I think of Midsummer's Night's Dream, I think of Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
And I also think about Dead Poets Society. I think about a friend of mine that I had in college who was a wonderful person, but the worst to watch movies with, because she couldn't like wait for something to sort of play out and see what the movie did with it. She'd be like, what's going on? Why is he going in there? What's he doing? Or like she would ask all these questions, and we're like, oh my gosh, leave me alone. And the worst ever was when we were watching Dead Poets Society, and she just why is he going in that room? What's he doing?
I don't know. I've never seen this before.
I'm like,
This happens to me as well. And they're like, oh, I thought you saw this movie already. And I was like, no.
Like, as annoyed as some people, and I'm not saying it's not annoying, is people talk about like people on their phones and stuff, which they shouldn't do. But I would way rather have that than someone talking. Like, to me, that's talking is like the ultimate worst cinema sin. Like, do not talk to me. Like,
Oh man, when we watched movies,
even at home, don't talk to me when we're watching the movie.
My sister and I are my brother hates it because we end up having like these massive discussions during a movie. And my brother's like, will you shut up?
Okay. Well, my number 10 is, I think, probably a hot take, but I think that the remake of West Side Story, I prefer it over the original. I think that the original has some of the most incredible choreography that you're ever going to see. It's iconic, just from snap, 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 immediately. Oh, it's West Side Story. It has a lot of great things about it. Rita Moreno, incredible. But I just don't think they have good chemistry at all. I think they have negative chemistry, and I don't think they even liked each other, and you can tell. And, it's just some of the other stuff, the aspects of the original, the brown face, and there's just some, I just think this one does practically almost every element better. And it still has the beautiful cinematography. The way they do the one shots into the are so like captivating. And the choreography is not as good. It's not as iconic, which how could it be? I mean, you're talking maybe the most iconic choreography ever in the history of movies. Aside from that, I think these two have way better chemistry than the original. They actually sing their own songs.
I will agree on that. Yeah.
Ariana DeBose, I think, is great. She won the Oscar.
She was the movie for me. I'm not a big fan of West Side Story in general, but like I wish I liked this movie more. But she definitely was the film for me.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm not the biggest Romeo and Juliet fan in general. That's why it's amazing I have two of them on this list. but I like this version better. I just do.
Yeah.
I really do. So I have it at number 10. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Rachel Fordham and her new novel, Beyond Ivy Walls. Looking to escape into a world of romance and history? Pick up a Rachel Fordham novel today. These heartwarming tales whisk you away to simpler times. They're full of heart and always end with a sigh-worthy happily ever after. Pick up her latest, Beyond Ivy Walls, and discover why readers are always hungry for more. Beyond Ivy Walls, in Iowa, 1903, all of Monticello believes Otis Taylor has been away fostering his musical genius, but the truth is that his father exiled him long ago, rejecting Otis's appearance and the scars that came with it. Now that he is the last living Taylor, Otis has covertly returned to settle his family's affair and rid himself of his past for good. At 23 years old, Sadie West left her family farm and found employment at the Hogue Feather Duster Factory. It isn't a romantic job, but she's hardly had a glimmer of romance since her beau went off to college, leaving her with no promise of a future together. Desperate to save money and help her family make ends meet, she trespasses and finds shelter in an abandoned building and is thrown in the path of the town's mysterious bachelor. Otis' wounds are deep, but as Sadie's friendship with him grows, she begins to fall for the man beneath the mask. So pick up Beyond Ivy Walls today, wherever you purchase your books, or check out Rachel Fordham's website at rachelfordham.com to learn more. And you can use the affiliate link below. What do you have at 9?
I have the Tragedy of Macbeth, the most recent one with Denzel Washington. I think it was directed by Joel Cohen, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I knew it was one of the.
I had this I was debating about this, but I had so much other Macbeth. But I thought this was a little underappreciated.
I think Denzel Washington is just so good in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, he is so fantastic, and he really has a grasp on Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. He really is, like, for an American actor, because we always think of British, like, great British actors who do Shakespeare. But for an American actor, Denzel Washington really delivers it. Mm-hmm. And he's so good in this movie. And I love the way this film is photographed in black and white and how it looks like a set design, like you're on stage at all times, and how they played with the light and shadows and and you go into a foggy room and it's smoke. It just looks incredible in black and white. And it's, I don't know, it just, this one really got to me. I was late to the party on this one when I finally watched it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I just, like watch it for Denzel because he really. I mean, there's so many people in this movie,
Yeah, you've got
really good
Frances
actors and stuff.
McDormand as Lady
Yeah,
Macbeth.
um,
Unbelievable.
I think Brendan Gleeson too. Like, there's so many people, but
Hmm.
like he centers that whole movie, and
Hmm.
when he does his monologues, I mean, like you cannot. I'm not
Hmm.
surprised he got nominated
Hmm.
for this performance because he is mesmerizing on the screen,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
I
so
agree. It's really good.
yeah.
Well, my number 9 is where I have The Taming of the Shrew with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton.
Oh, I had that slightly higher.
Yeah. I mean, they are so good together and are so funny. And
Oh,
I think what
absolutely.
makes this version palatable as far as traditional versions of Taming of the
Hmm.
Shrew is there's never a second where they don't feel like equals in every regard. Like
Yes.
even physically, it never it's like she is violent, as violent as he is, like they are both the same. And so it makes the maybe the tougher aspects of this play,
Hmm.
it makes it more palatable because it does feel like nobody is kind of dominating over the other.
I mean, their
And they're
chemistry
so
leaps
funny.
off the screen too.
Yeah.
Like, it's so electric, but
Yeah.
they are so good together. You're right. I mean, it was directed by Franco Zeffirelli, and he did something with Shakespeare when he made those movies, and it just has a
Uh-huh.
very unique look, and
Yeah.
it's
Because he has a
they
very
are great
famous
in it.
version of Romeo and Juliet as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Spoilers for me. But yeah.
Well, let's see. What do you have at 8?
At 8, I have a Chinese movie called The Banquet that came out in
Oh.
2006, and it is inspired by and loosely inspired by Hamlet. What
Hmm.
I like about this movie, it focuses a lot more on the women
Mm-hmm.
and their role sort of in the story, and it's visually scrumptious, Rachel.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at. The sets, the costumes, the color grading, how they frame everything, they're all of a piece. And there's a lot of dance in this movie, so everything, their movements is almost always like a dance, even their fighting when they get to fight. And it's so stylized. I don't know if it's good, if it's actually good, because I think some of the story is sacrificed because of how this movie looks and how stylized it is. But it's sort of an interesting setting because the Empress, is
So it's
who.
a wuxia, like they're flying and stuff.
Yeah, some of it, not all of it, but they have a bit of a fighting style like that. But it's like there's a lot of artistry to it. But like the Crown Prince would be Hamlet, and he's just like, oh God, you're so wishy-washy. It's really the women who sort of take a center stage of deceit and betrayal. And it has a brutal ending, Rachel. You're like,
Ooh.
wow, man, like this
You
is
know, I guess
depressing.
Hamlet
I mean, it would. It would. And let
Hamlet
me just
does
tell you.
have a brutal ending. I mean,
Exactly, and he has his interpretation in this movie
uh-huh.
has it.
Huh.
And poor Ophelia, though, must suffer in every aspect always,
Yeah.
even in this Chinese version of it. But I will say to check this one out, and
Yeah. I've
it
never
is
seen
really,
it.
what did I say? It is on the Roku channel because I just rewatched
Okay.
this one yesterday. But
Hmm.
it is I just
It's a good
found it.
movie.
Yeah, I just like, I don't even know if it's good, Rachel, but I was visually like enthralled with it.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
love the look, and it's a period piece and
Uh-huh.
it's set in ancient China. So,
Well, my number 8 is not a specific adaptation, but it's about Shakespeare. I have Shakespeare in Love. It's
mhm.
completely fictional, but you get to see a supposed how he wrote Romeo and Juliet and everything, and this movie I do think gets more flack than it deserves because it beats Saving Private Ryan for Best
Mm.
Picture. And I don't think there's that many people that are going to say it's a better movie than Saving Private Ryan, but it was in the era of Miramax and the era of Weinstein, and they basically bought and sold their they basically bought those Oscars, and so
I
people kind of
Yeah.
have some resentment for the movie. But in reality, it's like a perfectly charming little romance. I at least I think so. I think it's a I think it's well told, and I think they have pretty good chemistry, and I don't know, I just think it's a pretty good story and kind of a fun little take on Shakespeare and historical fiction. And of course you got Judi Dench as Queen Elizabeth and coming in.
Shortest, like, oh, actually, she might not have been the shortest performance to win
I think
an
it might be.
Academy.
Yeah, it's
No,
only I think
I
12
think it's
minutes or
from.
something.
No, I think the lady from I can't remember the actress's name from oh my gosh. What was that news movie? The one that Faye Dunaway won Best Actress.
Oh,
Yeah, I had a brain
yeah,
fart. I
yeah.
can't remember the name. I actually think she's the shortest performance.
Mm.
The
It's one of
shortest.
the shortest for sure.
Yeah.
But it was really just kind of an apology because she had been nominated for Her Majesty Mrs. Brown the year
Yeah.
before. And that was like such a great performance.
Yeah.
And they gave
Sure.
to so they just kind of gave her the Oscar the year
I
later.
mean, I do think I also think it's like for when you say this movie is because it did beat out Saving Private Ryan, but I also feel like it's the same situation with How Green Is My Valley, which is actually a better movie. Everybody says it sucks because it beats
Yeah.
Citizen Kane, but it's not. It's a really good bummer of a movie, but it's a good movie, but
Hmm.
it lives on in that infamy. But I just read a while back, I read this book called Oscar Wars,
Hmm.
where it talks about campaign races in the history of the Oscars, and they talk about this
Oh yeah.
Weinstein years and the race between Saving Private Ryan and Shakespeare in Love. And they actually make, and the writer actually says that I the acting trophies, maybe Weinstein really put like a lot into it, but the tide had turned on the Oscar voters wanting to watch something fun and frothy. And I
Hmm.
don't mean that as an insult to this movie, but
Yeah.
like Saving Private Ryan is so heavy, and the other movies that were nominated at that year, like this was lighthearted and it was charming and it was romantic, and it kind of wooed
Hmm.
the voting audience. So I think that this might have won on its own merit, like in the moment of when that voting took
Well,
place.
it's I mean those late 90s you had the romances that did very well.
Yeah.
Like you had The English Patient and you had Titanic and you
Oh,
had
The
I mean
English Patient,
this
everybody gives. I love that movie, but that is a Weinstein. Like him, he
yeah.
campaigned so hard for that
Oh yeah.
movie, but I
But
do love
and then
it.
and this is not as depressing
No,
as
it's
those,
not. It's not.
but there were a lot of romances that got
Yeah,
a lot of
it
attention.
was a great decade in that aspect, you
but
know.
but I do think that this movie kind of gets hurt by that fact of like
Yes.
people resented the fact that it was this Weinstein
Yeah,
movie and that it went up against Saving Private Ryan.
exactly. It's
And
kind of
it's hard
it
because
is,
they're just
yeah.
they're apples and oranges, like they're completely different. Like how do you even compare them, you know?
I feel that um not oh, another brain fart I had. The movie that won Best Picture about the deaf family. What was the name of that movie?
Oh, Coda.
Coda. I really love that movie, and people are reacting to it negatively now because it won Best Picture over what was nominated. But you got to think at the year and the time it won
Yeah.
people over in a hard
Yeah.
year. People wanted something uplifting and inspirational,
Yeah.
and just like, and that movie is all that. That movie is
Mhm.
good,
Yeah, and
and I
people keep
think,
saying like, "Oh, the Hallmark, it's a Hallmark movie." And I'm
oh,
like,
I
when
mean.
people say that, I'm like, you obviously don't watch Hallmark movies. It's not a Hallmark movie, but I
Actually
do
really
like.
great to hear someone else who doesn't like that movie's opinion about it. And I was like, okay, you tell me, you
Yeah.
know. I know when I read the book, I was like, whoa. It's harder to take when I read the book. I was like, oh, what's going
Yeah.
on here?
But I enjoy Shakespeare in Love. I think it's a really
Yeah.
fun little romp. It's a fun little movie, and there is a Disney theatricals play adaptation of
Hmm.
the movie, and that I've seen twice. I saw once in a reading, staged reading, and then I saw
Mhm.
it just this last May here, and it was such a great production. The two leads had incredible chemistry. They were so good. And
Oh, you're right,
It's a
'cause
play. It's
Disney
not a
does own this
musical.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Disney. And I really, so if you ever see that it's being staged near you, I recommend it. I think it's
I could see it working on, yeah.
yeah. And
I wish I loved this movie so, but I feel I'm so indifferent on Gwyneth Paltrow
uh-huh.
that it takes it's weird. You know, sometimes you just don't gel with actors. I don't know this lady. I'll be honest with you, Rachel. She delivered like food to my door. I wouldn't know who this was. I've stole that from somebody, that whole thing. I wouldn't know who the person was.
Well,
So it's
it's
not
too
original,
bad because there's also a play that's
yeah.
going right now called Gwyneth Goes Skiing. And
Oh,
it's all
oh my
about
gosh.
it's all about Gwyneth
Wow,
Paltrow.
what a ridiculous trial that
Yeah, the
was. That
trial.
was
And
amazing.
they did it. It was from England, and they did it here in Utah because it's all set in Utah. And so
Yeah,
I went and saw it in
amazing.
like April, and it was
Oh, Rachel.
hilarious.
I kept up with that and I had to laugh at through all of that. That's hysterical.
Well,
Oh.
you have to see it if it ever comes by you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because
Gwyneth Goes Skiing.
yeah. I guess she probably got a whole bunch of new fans. She was like, oh, all her looks or whatever. Which is a shame because I do think there's a lot of merit to this movie. And oh
Yeah.
man, wasn't Rafe Fiennes? No, not Rafe Fiennes.
Joseph Fiennes.
It was a Fiennes, but not Rafe.
Joseph.
Joseph, I got the brothers mixed up. Apologies. I mean, he was so
I
hot
think he's good.
at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah, no,
And
I mean, like he was on fire that year. He was
yeah.
everywhere.
And
And
Colin
women
Firth is the villain.
I know, and women were smoldering all over for him. I remember that year.
Yeah.
Those couple of years.
It was shocking. This villain. But I like it. So what do you have at 7?
I have from 1956 a sci-fi movie called The Forbidden Planet. And it's based on The Tempest.
Yes.
And this one actually stars Walter Pidgeon and Leslie Nielsen. People always remember Leslie Nielsen as the comedic actor he was, but he was a serious actor in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I mean, it's set in the super future, you know, and a spaceship lands on this planet because 20 years prior, they had a ship go there to essentially they're colonizing the planet. They want to check on their colony. And they only find a scientist and his daughter alive. And and there's a robot. What was the robot's name? I have this written down. Anyway, there's a robot in it.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie the robot. I think
Mm.
Robbie the robot became really famous back in the 50s. Weird stuff starts happening on this planet, and the men, of course, because it's all men, and there's only one woman in this movie, they all start to have the hots for this lady. And it's just really weird. And they're like, don't travel past this point at night. And there's a creature out terrorizing them. And then the sci-fi spin they put on it. I think everybody should check out this movie. It's really great. Like if you're looking for like classic 50s sci-fi, this is a really great movie for you to check out. But like the way they find out about technology and advanced civilizations and who the real beast is, and the temptation and everything that they go through. So it's kind of like it's a mixture. It's not a mixture and a mixture of The Tempest. You know, they mix it in together. But I think it's a really interesting take on making making Shakespeare sci-fi.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I don't think
Yeah,
I've seen
I would
it.
like if you enjoy like those 50s sci-fi movies, like the looks and the feels of it. I would get to see. Yeah, Robbie the robot has he's like that boxy, like like that robot look became very famous, at the time. Like in my mind that, because I watched so many classic movies as a kid, that in my mind I had that imprinted on me, the robot. But yeah.
That sounds good.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. And Leslie Nielsen was super hot when he was young. I mean, he was always a good-looking gentleman, but like he'll blow you away. You're like, I didn't know he had it in him like this, because I think younger generations are so used to seeing him as the comedic force. If anybody remembers him today, because he's been gone for a while, but
yeah. Yeah, no, he could. I mean, it was really the airplane movie that
Oh,
changed
I
that
guess
around.
people would like, yeah, I think people would remember him still from that. That's still a popular movie, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I
like,
think that changed his career, like the course of his career.
he's the man up in this, in this movie.
That's cool. Well, my number 7, part of the reason why I wanted to do this was not only having gone to the Shakespeare Festival, but I knew I'd already recorded this episode of a recap with my friend Patrick that would be airing on Wednesday for the 25th anniversary of 10 Things I Hate About You. So that's my number 7. And this is a modern adaptation of Taming of the Shrew. And it's got all of your elements. You've got Bianca, you've got Kat, you've got the wager that happens, you've got the Petruchio character, you've got Padua High School. And I think they are pretty clever about how they kind of work in the play in a pretty natural way. And I do think that especially Heath Ledger and Julie Stiles have really nice chemistry together. And like when he sings on the bleachers, it's super charming. And I will forever have envy of that paintball place they go to. Like I want to go to, they like throw paint at each other. I'm like, that looks really fun. Because I never want to go paintballing because that with the guns, because that's like actually hurts really bad. But like this is like a paintball where they throw paint at each other. And I'm like, that looks fun. Where is that? I want to do that. Anyway, I think it is quite charming for what it is, and it's definitely a creature of its time, a very 1999 movie.
I think I've just come to the realization as you were talking about this that I have never completely seen this movie in its entirety.
Oh, really?
I just came to the realization of this. I was like, wait.
It is one of those. I
don't think I've ever seen it completely.
It is one of those.
I always caught this on television.
It is one of those movies from like there was this whole like brand of teen comedies from like 1996 to maybe 2002 where every single one had involved some kind of like wager or bet, and they all had their like climactic moment at the prom, whether it's She's the Man, whether it's She's All That, whether it's 10 Things I Hate About You, Never Been Kissed, Drive Me Crazy.
The 80s too had that too.
The one where they the big party one, I can't think of with Jennifer Love Hewitt, I can't think of the name.
Ooh, I know that, yeah.
But like there was tons of teen movies in that era, and they were all almost exactly the same, and almost all. And this, I think this one is fun. I enjoy this one.
Yeah, because this is also an era where they were doing teen reimaginings, like teen movie reimaginings of Shakespeare too. That was in.
Yeah. And it was definitely the era of the teen rom-com. There were tons and tons
of them.
Obviously, and then you had Clueless. That was also, a teen reimagining of a classic book. And
that was in, yeah.
So, what do you have at 6?
This is where I have the Franco Zeffirelli directed Romeo and Juliet from 1968.
Yeah.
This is the one that I most think of, the one I've seen the most, the adaptation I've seen the most. I watched it at school in high school. My English teacher just put it on and fell asleep and just like let it go.
It's like R-rated. They didn't get in trouble.
No, I don't see. No.
There's nudity and stuff in that.
Rachel, this was the 90s. This was the 90s. Let's see. I think I was a freshman. Yeah, so this must have been 1994. I think it's the first time I ever saw this movie. Yeah, I was a freshman, 1994. And we were wild back then. I mean, we couldn't make it. Let me tell you the high school that I went in. We couldn't make it a whole day without a fire drill every 20 minutes because people would blow up a locker. Yeah. Nobody cared that we put on this R-rated movie. My teacher put it on, put sunglasses on, Rachel, and went to sleep.
Well, I was a freshman in 94 as well. So
we did not watch it. But I immediately fell in love with it. I remember getting the VHS of it. If anybody remembers that, they used to be like cassettes. Oh, wait. Do people know what cassettes are? Anywho,
dear.
Used to be a box that went into another box.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do.
It is a beautiful movie.
It is a beautiful movie.
And this is like the classic adaptation of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
If you want to watch one that stays pretty close to the script.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it's a good
Yes,
one.
I'm
I
sorry
thought
about
about it.
Yeah, no, I know,
and
because
really
it's like I
considered.
have to put a version of Romeo and Juliet. It wouldn't be a Shakespeare list without it.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
I think there's so many people who don't know Shakespeare, know Romeo and Juliet at least.
hmm
And I was like, I
Well,
got it, and this is my favorite version.
my number 6 is where I have Henry V with Kenneth Branagh.
Mm. Mhm.
I think this is by quite a bit the best of the histories
Mhm.
for Shakespeare. I think it's just the most like gripping. It's the least boring.
Yeah.
And when he gets up to the St. Crispin's Day speech,
Yes.
where he's rallying all of the soldiers, and I think that's really earned. And it's really moving moment. And
It really
Kenneth
is.
Branagh, this is like his bread and butter.
It is. And I'm correct that he directed this version too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I think this was his first
I believe so. I believe.
Shakespearean.
I'm not
Yeah.
100% certain, but I think
And so it's it's really good.
It is really good.
Yeah. So what do you have at 5?
This is where I have The Taming of the Shrew with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton.
Mm-hmm.
Also directed by Zeffirelli.
Yes.
He had an eye, man. He had an eye, people. He had a real good eye.
Mm-hmm. Well, my number 5 is where I have Hamlet, and it is the Laurence Olivier Hamlet.
Mhm. Yes.
That's the one I picked. I think that the Branagh one is impressive, but I do think sometimes his like wanting to include all of his friends gets in the way a little bit. It can be distracting when you have someone like a Charlton Heston or Jack Lemmon or something like that, like in a throwaway, like nothing kind of part, because you're just like, you keep expecting them to do something
It is,
important.
yeah, because those are never Branagh's friends when he puts them in those small roles. Those are like actors who just want to do it, and he puts them in it.
Yeah, for whatever
he's a very actor's director, so I suppose that's why everybody wants to be it.
What I would take. I think it's a good movie. For me, I would take a little bit from it that it is so long. He didn't want to cut anything, no. And I just think it can be a little distracting with the cameos.
Yeah.
Whereas this one with Olivier is just like, it's Hamlet. This is classic. There's nothing
classic. Yeah.
What else could you want in like a
so true.
production of Hamlet?
So true.
So that's the one that I picked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
What do you have it for?
This is where I went. I'm going to pick one Branagh, one Kenneth Branagh, and that's it. And because the whole list could be, because I really like As You Like It and Henry V. But I decided to pick Much Ado About Nothing. Yes. Because I do find it very whimsical and very charming. Again, Denzel Washington being so great in it. Yeah. And of course, Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson were married. The chemistry is like off the roof. But Keanu Reeves, even in this movie too, is like, you wouldn't expect it. And Michael Keaton, that's right. And I mean, there's so many now famous British people who have such small roles, like Amelia Staunton, has such a small role. Emma Thompson's mom too, Willa Del Law, and it's like, and I think her sister's in it too, but I don't know. This one's so much fun. It is very delightful. I rewatched it last night.
Me too.
Samuel Golden Mayer popped up, and I was like, wow, pictures. I was like, I haven't seen that in forever, like that logo. It's been so long. I forgot, Rachel, how many rear ends we saw in the beginning of that bathing montage. Yes. When I was watching, I was laughing.
Scandal.
Yeah, what a scandal. I was
They're
laughing
trying to give that like Renaissance kind of
feel. Totally.
Yes. You have the same thing in Room with a View. And
absolutely, and I just
there's something about Italy that makes me
I just laughed so much because it was just so funny. But it's just something so charming about this movie too. And like, why would you fall for any of these lies Keanu Reeves is saying? Why would you have somebody else woo for this lady? I mean, it's all dumb, but yet it all works. Good movie.
I love it. Well, I have at number 4, like if I was just going on of which one of these movies is my favorite, this would be my number 1. But I'm asking the question, what is, I think, the best Shakespearean adaptation? So I have Lion King 4 at number 4.
Mhm.
And of course, it's more like an homage to Hamlet. It uses themes from Hamlet. It's one of the finest animated films ever made. It's one of my favorite films. But I don't know, it just didn't feel right to have this be number 1 in a Shakespearean adaptation. It feels like 4 is the right place for it for me.
Yeah.
But
It's so great.
I love it so much.
It is. It's
I just
wonderful.
watched it. They had the re-release for its anniversary, and it's a 30-year anniversary. Can't believe it, but it's so moving. I love the fact that Simba's really offered a whole new way to live.
Yeah.
By Timon and Pumbaa. That Hakuna Matata, and I think that's good for kids to see that there are lots of other ways besides your parents that you can live in life, and the themes of forgiveness. And when he says, you promised you'd always be there, but you're not, and it's just like devastating, and the past can hurt, but we must learn from it. And I'm going to take away your stick.
I know, it's so, and the
He
music
lives in you.
I know, the music, the animation, that opening scene. I mean, it's great. It's classic 90s era Disney. Like, it'll forever hold up. And now Disney is ruining it with a prequel.
Terrible.
Yeah, did you see like I was reading Scar's.
We do not need Scar's origin story.
But apparently Mufasa's adopted, and I was like, wait, and they still didn't leave Scar the kingdom. Like, I was like, what's going on here?
Disney cannot accept the fact that there's like evil.
There are no more villains. Yeah,
that's why it's so bizarre when at D23 they announced this villain land that's supposedly going to come to, I think, Magic Kingdom in Florida.
Yeah, I don't understand this.
How can you have a villain land when you've denied the fact that villains exist for the last 20 years?
Yeah, it's like every villain has a tragic backstory.
Yeah. So now we have to get the origin story for why Scar is a sociopath.
I don't think so.
I hate it.
Ma'am, don't overthink this. Don't overthink it.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Factor Meals. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/Hallmarkies50 and use code Hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code Hallmarkies50 at factormeals.com/Hallmarkies50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Definitely check out Factor Meals. We know you'll love them. Oh, what do you have at 3?
I have 1953's Julius Caesar, starring everybody. Marlon Brando, James Mason. It also stars Greer Garson and Deborah Kerr, which as a child, I used to always get them confused. And they don't have any scenes together, but this is the only movie that they've ever appeared in together. This movie, I mean, the behind the scenes is quite interesting.
Joseph L. Mankiewicz? Oh my
gosh. Yes. The behind the scenes of how this movie got made is really interesting as well. But watching it, it's Marlon Brando steals the show. Whenever he is on, it is electric. And he did not want a screen test for this movie. And he says, I will send you a tape of me reading monologue. And if you don't like the way I sound, then you don't have to cast me. Because in the press, they were making fun of Marlon Brando. Like, Marlon Brando can't be doing Shakespeare. He's a mumbler. Like, he doesn't have the voice for it.
Right.
So Marlon Brando did his homework. He went to work and he went on set and he told everybody, hold my beer. and he just knocked it out of the park.
I
Nobody
want to see this. I've
expected
never seen it.
I'm streaming somewhere, but now I don't know where it's streaming. I have to but like nobody expected him to give the performance that he gave.
Oh, it's on Tubi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say watch it, Rachel. It's all black and white. It's beautifully photographed.
Yeah.
But his performance was so electric, nobody expected it, that James Mason was like, hold up, this dude cannot steal my thunder, because he plays Brutus. And really, Brutus is, especially in this movie, he's the one with the most dialogue, the most scenes. If you would pick a star of this movie, it would be him.
Mhm.
Brutus's journey in plotting, Caesar's death and the aftermath and all that stuff. But the minute Marlon Brando walks in, he's just like, you forget James Mason is there, who's also very good. So it must have really, really hurt when Brando was the only actor to get like an acting nomination for this movie. But like when he's sitting there and he lays Caesar, in front of the crowd, and he gives that speech, you were like, Brando, you are the man.
My number 3 is also from the 50s. I have it's from director Akira Kurosawa, Throne of Blood, and this is a reimagining of Macbeth, which is one of my favorites, but it's set in feudal Japan, and this is a really well-made film, very moving film, and it's got all of your Macbeth touch points. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this is my number 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I rewatched this one yesterday too. And because I hadn't seen it in a while. I don't know, because it was the most expensive Japanese film made at that point. And when you look at it and you're like, I could tell, it's
and stunning.
He takes time. He takes the time to just have these guys on horseback, riding long stands and walking. And you don't care that it takes a long time. You're just so enthralled visually with what you're seeing and the performances. And Lady Macbeth, or the Lady Macbeth character is oh, you're a fool to think this way. And you're like, here we go. And it's just, she's
cold.
She's so cold in this movie. And it's such a great performance too. I was really appreciating her performance in that movie. Yes, when I was rewatching it yesterday.
And she gets the crazy really well too.
Oh, she does. And that's all you need to see of her.
Damn spot.
Yeah. And it's and he is, I think though, have you seen the meme now of the moment that everybody knows when he gets shot with arrows towards the end of the movie?
I haven't.
When they're killing him. Okay. There's a meme where they speed it up just a tad and put the Benny Hill music to it.
Oh, no.
And now I think that's what everybody knows about Throne of Blood. Video meme of him getting hit with all those arrows, this climactic moment. It's oh my gosh, look at what's happening. And now it's let's put the Benny Hill music and next to it and have him, and do it at at 4 speed with it, It is funny to watch, but I think that I was no, don't kill this movie like that.
Yeah, so we both have it as our highest Macbeth. I mean, you have it, couldn't have it any higher.
Oh yeah.
Well, what do you have at number 2?
Well, this is where I went and said, let me pick one Olivier. And I thought that I would go, I love this. It's from 1955. It's Richard III.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know this is not an Olivier that people would pick. I think people would go with Hamlet. And, but he is such a rascal, such a terrible person. And he directed this movie as well. He directed this iteration of Richard III. And the costumes and the sets, it's a very bare minimum, but yet such a lavish.
I haven't seen it.
It's a lavish looking movie. I actually have this because it's on Criterion. So I have the Blu-ray of this, and I rewatched this actually earlier today because I was debating on which Olivier to pick for this list. And it's just when he's looking at the camera and he's just monologuing and saying, well, gotta kill my brother. Waiting for him to die. Got to kill my nephews. just like I don't care, like that attitude, and he's so good. Olivier is just so good in delivering it, and the performances he gets, and the way what I loved about this movie too is they're standing in front of a window, right, Rachel? They're having a conversation. You're listening it, you're paying attention, and in the background, there's horses, there's people moving, and you're like, the smallest of
Mhm.
ridiculous, detail was paid attention to a movie that's not very bare minimum in sets and how everything looks, but yet so vibrant and alive. And it almost looks like a stage play, but it's not,
Mhm.
you could
Yeah.
tell it's sets, but it just has this like lavish feel to it, even though it's like the barest of minimum, and it feels cold. And he just turns around to the camera and he just like talks to the camera and a wink and like, ain't I a scoundrel? And I was like, yes, you are a terrible person, Richard III. And this is again also like Tudor propaganda in a way to make Richard III look terrible. But I know that there's a lot of defenders of him today and saying he did not kill the boys and the princess in the
Mhm.
tower. But can we be real here? Of course he did,
Mhm.
because they were
Yeah.
a danger to his throne. I mean,
Right. Yeah, I've
uh,
never seen that one. I need to watch it. I
yes,
do.
it's quite interesting. I think it he really did a good job directing it, and
Mhm.
I decided to pick this one because I love it. I love it a lot. It's one of my favorite Olivier Shakespearean
Mm.
performances, and he's so good in Hamlet and everything else like
Yeah.
that, and his own version of Henry V as well. But
Mhm.
I think that this one's little talked about, and
Mhm. Yeah.
it's beautifully restored too. Like
Mhm.
so,
Well, my number two is, I think, somewhat divisive. I know people just don't like Baz Luhrmann and his style and everything, but I have Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann version with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. I just love the visual aesthetic to
yeah.
this movie and the
Hmm.
world that he creates, and I think these two have incredible chemistry. That it's like just great. And I just think this is like really, really refreshing, and like that somebody took this property that's just been done time and again and brought something new and exciting. And I remember loving it in 96, and I still love it. I still think it's beautiful and creative, and I love the way that it looks, and I love these two lead performances. And yeah, it's
Definitely
I
did
really
something
enjoy
for
it.
teen audiences when this movie came
Yeah,
out.
maybe
It
I
had
just
Claire, it had Claire Danes, Leonardo DiCaprio. They were it.
yeah, and
For us
I
as
just
teens at that time, yeah.
yeah, and I saw it when I was, 15, and just thought
Yeah.
that it was the most one of the most beautiful poetic, movies. And I love the
Yeah.
style of the movie and the chemistry of these two
It's
actors.
quite
And
interesting how.
yeah, and that they kept the original. It would have been easy to use modern words, but they kept quite a bit of the original
Yeah.
Shakespeare. And
We had a
I've
lot
always
of
felt like it's a little bit underappreciated. That
I debated
but
putting this one on the list, but I was like, I like the other the more traditional sort
yeah.
of Romeo and Juliet. But like, yeah, this one I haven't watched this one in forever either. It's
Hmm.
been a long time for me, but I think I would still enjoy it when watching it. He definitely people discovered
Yeah.
Shakespeare. Like I used to have friends. I had a at this time I had a pen pal in China.
Mm.
And I knew it was big there because she used to make like she would read these fan magazines and she would send me sometimes envelopes she would make or like book pockets,
Yeah.
and she would make them, because the Chinese are very creative with their scrapbooking, and she would make it out of Romeo and Juliet, like clippings from the
Mm.
magazines and the movie
Hmm.
and stuff.
Hmm.
And they were
Yeah.
like really nice looking. And no,
Yeah.
because she loved the movie too, so it even transcended. I'm just saying, like across
Yeah. Well,
everywhere.
so you already had Throne of Blood as your number one. You already said that.
Yes, that was my Throne of Blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my number one is Much Ado About Nothing. I watched it last night
Oh yes.
just to
Yeah.
be sure. And I just
Yeah.
love this movie.
Very
It's got such
whimsical.
an amazing cast. It's so sumptuously filmed.
I kind
It's
of feel bad because I did not include it on the rom-coms of the 90s, and I think it could
mm,
have. It's a touch and go,
I can't
but
remember if I had it or
I now
not.
I don't know if you had it or not, and I kind of was like, when I thought about it, but like, I do feel like I should have rethought that idea and had it
Oh, I
on
don't think I
because
did. I should have.
I don't think I had it either because I thought about it and I was like, nah, it doesn't really match it. And I hadn't seen it in so long. That's why I rewatched it yesterday
Mhm.
because I was like, I have to refresh my mind about
Mhm.
it. But it is very
Because there
whimsical,
is
very
quite a
charming.
bit of drama with Claudio and Hero and that whole drama
Two
going on.
idiots.
But I do think at its core, it's a romantic comedy between Beatrice and Benedict, and there's all
Oh,
the
yes.
around it. And
Yeah.
so I probably should have had it on that list. But it's just
I
a
would not
joy
take
to
him back if
watch.
I was Hero because he's over there shoving her around on that wedding. I mean, he
I
didn't even go
agree.
up there and like punch that guy out or break them apart. He just sees them kissing
Mhm.
like, oh no. Like I would have gone on there and like kicked the door down, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that
But
he wouldn't have had like a conversation with her like
no, like what
before
are you doing?
the
Like
wedding
he
that
could
he has to publicly shame
and
her.
he's gonna push her around. I mean,
He's-
very
Yeah,
of the moment and of the time,
yeah.
they would totally do that. But like
But
I
to
would be
be
like, kick rocks.
but Kate Beckinsale is perfect for that
Yes,
role in
I think
this. Like
this might have
she's
been her first movie. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought I read somewhere this was her first like movie.
yeah,
Like she
I
had
could
been
see
in
that.
television before. Yeah. And again, Denzel
Yeah.
Washington is just so charming,
Hmm.
and he just and I know and I'm gonna say it like we
Yeah, it
wouldn't think
was her
about it.
first. It was her first
Yeah.
movie.
We don't
I
even think
mean,
about it now, like Denzel Washington being the only black actor in that film. We don't even think about it
hmm
now. Like
hmm
we think of Denzel as Shakespeare now, but back then this was like, what is Denzel doing in this movie,
hmm
right?
hmm
Because I remember people saying like, what's he doing in there? And he just like
hmm
sachets in there and like steals
Yeah.
steals the
Yeah,
picture because it's
it's
so
true. It's
good.
because
Yeah.
it was before like
Oh,
racially blind casting
yes, it
became kind of
was.
a
Yeah, and
thing.
Branagh really did that. Like it's
Hmm
true. It was
hmm
before that time, and
hmm
again, one of the
hmm
better American actors to do Shakespeare
hmm
is Denzel Washington. And but like even Keanu
hmm
Reeves, like he doesn't speak a lot in this movie, but even he's quite good. Like
Yeah, I mean
I've
it's
seen
kind
it.
of a one note villain part, but
It's
he
totally,
does
but like.
the job. And like you said,
Yes, Keanu Reeves did that. He did Dracula. He did this. He did
mhm.
Dangerous Liaisons. I mean, he has a very unique resume.
It's true. Again, Walk in the Clouds right around this time, which I
Yeah,
love.
not a good movie, but I love that movie. I
I
always say
love that
I love
movie.
that movie so much, Rachel. I think I have the
Yeah.
Blu-ray. I might watch that tonight.
I love it. Yeah. I just this is just a joy to watch,
It is. It is a joy.
and of course, Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson were married at the time, so they
Mm-hmm.
had like that incredible chemistry, and
Well, it all went downhill.
yeah, it sure did. But we had this moment of time,
This was
and
about a year before Emma Thompson really blew up with Howard's End and Remains of the Day and Sense and Sensibility. Like right
Mhm.
about this was a year before she had an incredible mid-90s, like The Run too, and
Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
So, but I love Much About Nothing, and it's a great play and it's a great movie. So people should check it out. And I did rewatch the Joss Whedon one just to see if I wanted that
I've
on
never
this
seen that
list,
one. Yeah,
and it felt a little stale in
talk
the
about a movie
rewatch
with
for
all his
me.
friends or
Yeah,
former friends, because
yeah.
also
Um,
again, Rachel, we can't like anything anymore.
it felt a little stiff for
Yeah,
some
I've
reason
never
in the
seen it.
rewatch for me.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
So,
It's
but
shot. It's in black and white, correct?
yes.
Yeah,
And
I've
it's
never
just
seen
like
it.
him and his friends at literally, I think, at his house. Like they would do these Shakespeare plays just for fun. And
That's
then
an
one
interesting
time they
take,
like
though.
filmed
Yeah,
it.
it's an
And
interesting take to do that. Yeah,
yeah. So it's kind of novel, but not enough to, make my list.
yeah. And I think
So,
what I couldn't squeeze it in, but if anybody wants to see As You Like It with Kenneth Branagh, he directed it and he stars in it, and it's he sets it in feudal Japan and has
mhm.
David Aiello and very interesting because he does
Oh,
set
it's
it.
got Bryce Dallas Howard.
That's it, Bryce Dallas. Oh, I can't. What a brain fart I'm having today, guys!
I've never
I
seen
didn't
this
have enough
one.
meat this week. and I can't remember my names or pronounce anything correctly. But yeah, no, it's an interesting look. Like if I was going to give a suggestion, I would tell people to check that out. It went straight to HBO, so it's like an HBO TV movie.
Oh,
But it's
interesting.
visually interesting the way he sets it in, and he has colorblind casting in that as well in that film. But it's quite interesting how he changed it up a bit
Oh,
and sort
yeah.
of, it's Shakespeare, but
Mhm.
in a different
Interesting.
location. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one, but there we go. We did it. We have
Yay!
our ranking. Well, let us
And we
know.
only meandered a tad. I'm sorry.
What's
I didn't
that?
take we only meandered just a smidge. And it's because, again, I didn't have enough meat, so I went on and rambled. Apologies,
Well,
It's
we
been
got
a
to learn
day.
about your exciting screening of The Northman.
Yes, I have to share that. Somebody has to
Remember.
share my pain. I can't believe I sat there too. I was like, no, I paid my money for this.
Oh
So,
my
like, I
gosh.
turned
It's
into,
so
I wasn't
funny
a
because that
Karen
is
though, Rachel. I could have been a Karen, but I wasn't. I let them young people enjoy themselves, okay? But I
this
was
just
like, I'm
seems like
watching
the
that movie.
strangest movie to
Could you imagine though when they're beheading people and how loud that movie was in the theater for like this murder happening and they're
Oh
like groping each other
gosh.
under a coat. I mean, to be young, Rachel.
To
Oh,
be young.
to be young again.
Well, let us know what your ranking would be and what you think of ours. And don't forget that we have the bonus picks in the for the don't forget that we have the bonus picks for the patrons. So you definitely want to check that out. And thanks as always, Terry. It's a delight.
Thank
If
you, Rachel. This
people
was
want to
fun.
follow you, how do they do that?
On Twitter at Flurry Heaven, where I post nonsense and I talk about Hallmark movies, which I
Yes.
think Hallmark has it out for me because they haven't forgiven me for the most colorful time of the year rant that I had,
I mean,
but
speaking of
it's okay.
Shakespearean themes.
Oh my gosh, Rachel, we should have Hallmark doesn't do one of Shakespeare. Can you imagine?
Oh, well,
How would they do Hamlet and Macbeth?
well, you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, on Rotten Tomatoes, and I have Rachel's Reviews Theater, and I also have the On Stage Blog Theater podcast. So check that out. And you can follow our podcast, Hallmarkies Podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really, really helps us a lot. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group where you can get the bonus episodes and much more. We have our watch along coming up this month with writer Mike Grimm, who and we're going to be watching The Gift of Peace. He does the Dayspring movies. He's really interesting and fun. It's going to be a good one. And we also have the merch store where you can get all different kinds of Hallmark inspired merch and romance inspired merch. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.